Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Microsoft Ignite follow-up here with us in the Fellowmind studio in Copenhagen. With me I have Henrik Kim, returned from the US, but actually still in the US we have Rick, who is with us today also on a Teams meeting. Again, he got really early out of bed to join us today. So we're following up on the last 2 days of Ignite that you had. Once I left you last week, you were going out to experience more of Ignite, and you had 2 whole days actually.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty. Good morning. Yeah.
Good morning.
So I'm pretty excited to hear what did you experience in the last 2 days, and how are things?
Yeah, well, to no surprise, I think the rest of the Ignite was very much about AI and Copilot, of course. And I would say we will get back to that. I guess also being after Ignite, it's difficult to not talk about AI and OpenAI without mentioning, by the way, OpenAI. That was quite a story during this weekend, but I believe we all, as Microsoft customers and Microsoft partners, came out on the good side, because if nothing, then this really also showed that in the middle of this tumble, Microsoft was on the steady road, so to speak, and showed that no matter what happens, we have they are in it for the long term, and they are building the company based on this now. So I don't know, Rick, if you have something to add to that.
Yeah, to say I followed the story over the weekend as well, and also had some conversations with insiders here at Microsoft, and you can see that they're working very closely with the OpenAI team in every respect. But Microsoft is trying to stabilize the situation for them and for the Microsoft company at large. And I think that even the relationship has grown closer than it already was. So the outcome is in the end, I think, a good one for both companies.
Yeah, I agree. But then also us being Fellowmind, being a partner of Microsoft, we are not going into any speculations from this point on. I think that the key message for us here is, well, I think even Microsoft came out stronger, and we have something to build on. So back in the saddle, and let's go ahead. That's really more our message.
For sure. So you had 2 exciting days where none of this actually happened. It unfolded afterwards, but you never know what's going to hit you, right? So these 2 days that you actually experienced with all of these people together in Seattle. So what happened? Take us through. Where did you go after I sent you off into the morning last Thursday?
I actually managed to see a session that didn't mention AI at all.
Yeah, great.
Something about that. Yeah, it was almost something they advertised. We're not going to talk about what everyone else is talking about, and then they went on. So now I would say a lot of sessions was, of course, about AI and how to position AI and on different technical levels. It was a very really also repeating the story about Copilot, as you also heard us say last week, that Microsoft is now saying we are the Copilot company. So that came out from Satya during the keynote. So it kind of made sense that everyone else was then building on that sentence afterwards. What does it mean when we say that we are now the Copilot company? So to picture it, I would say for me, Thursday and Friday was really peeling the onion, seeing what's under the hood, trying to understand more deep dive on what is it really that Microsoft is building here. And we also, being the only two at Ignite from Fellowmind, we also strive to go to different sessions actually. So I don't know about you, Rick.
No, I had the same feeling, and as your experience, Henrik, I had the same thing. Also, at least one session where AI was not only once mentioned, as we're not talking about it because this is about a different subject. And that also meant that for me it felt like a very consistent thing in the development of what Microsoft is doing. Say in total, say it's a lot about AI, but it's not AI for the sake of AI. It's as a thing which naturally comes as a next step in the technology developments in the world to all what Microsoft is doing. So it naturally flows in. It will be everywhere. You cannot deny that. But at the same time, Microsoft is moving, say, in the same direction with the same consistency across the platform with whatever they did. And the last couple of days, I have had a lot of conversations also with people about subjects which had nothing to do with AI, but with, say, technology under the hood, functionality which we still need, which has nothing to do with AI. So it's a natural development, but it's not the only thing that Microsoft is doing.
No, actually, yeah, to touch on that point, I would say one thing is that you go to Ignite and you try to fill your calendar with breakout sessions and so on, because you want to learn from the best, learn from the ones that owns the products and so on. But Ignite is very much also a networking event, if you like. So it's very much also about meeting people. And that the obvious one is, of course, that you approach the presenters after a breakout session, having follow-up questions. And I would say Microsoft really invites you to do that. And that's also part of the great experience with Ignite. It's also, walking the floor of the expo hall. That was one of my complaints about last year. It didn't really feel like the expo hall, but it really did this year. They were present massively with all different Microsoft teams there, and they were kind of almost advertising, come and ask us the tough questions. So that's always nice. And
I totally can subscribe to that because I also had conversations there which were clarifying things which would I never find out if I just had been looking at the online versions.
But maybe that would be a clue on the online version. I also got the feedback from many of my peers that it was actually working quite nicely this year, that you could still join Ignite from abroad, listening in on the breakout sessions and as they were live, so to speak. I know sitting in Europe, for instance, it can be a bit cumbersome and with a 9-hour difference, but then at least some of the key breakouts and for instance the keynotes, I guess it was possible to follow. But again, there also, if nothing else, coming back home, I might even have been to a breakout session, but realized, okay, I need to see this again. I need to deep dive on some of the details that put forward there, some of the links with the additional resources. I actually used that to find a presentation that I thought that summed it up quite nicely about Microsoft 365 Copilot. I don't know, Pernille, if we can bring it.
Should we share that now?
Yeah. Because I think we on a basic level, we understand now that, okay, we had ChatGPT, we understand that ChatGPT builds on these GPTs and the large language models. But one of the things is then, okay, what is then the Microsoft Copilot? And I think we skip forward a bit. Now get the technical stuff to work here. The Copilot 365 is really where Microsoft say, okay, we have the large language model, we have the computer's ability to understand us speaking, both orally but also in writing across different languages. Now it should not only produce content to us, it should actually produce content based on stuff it finds on the internet. It needs to understand the application where this content needs to be produced, authored in, and it should, if not the most important part, it should bring your own data into this game. And that's what Microsoft Copilot 365 is all about. Then came a drawing that actually showed how this all comes together. It's somewhat complex, and I won't go into details on this session, but we would love to have a conversation also with you out there as customers of FellowMind, because it's so important to understand, because it speaks to both why it is that Microsoft Copilot is different from just using ChatGPT. It speaks to some of the complexities of languages. For instance, the Copilot still is only supporting some of the major languages, one of them not being Danish or Dutch. Or so they are coming, of course, but I had some good conversations about why is it really that it's complicated, because LLMs, they do understand Danish. We had good experience with that, right? But what is then even more important, I think, going forward, is that Microsoft 365 is maybe very approachable. It's easy to integrate into your company, but you can also extend it. And we saw some pretty good sessions on that. And the key message here is that you should think of it as you can extend the Copilot in two ways. They have what they say that they reskill it or add skills to the Copilot, or they add knowledge to the Copilot. I think there's also a slide actually on that. The idea being that the reskilling or adding skills is where you enable it through a plugin to talk to a, say, backend system, for instance. A lot of software vendors of Microsoft partners are today developing these plugins, so you will see ServiceNow, for instance, Jira Cloud, and so on, providing plugins that will enable the Copilot to speak to those backend systems.
Could it also be other backend systems? Like, are you...
Exactly.
Can you choose whatever you can imagine?
And I see a huge potential in that for our customers, and that you can really go out and maybe even with the legacy systems, see how... say I think the classic example we have is that you have a UI, maybe a UX that is not that approachable. You only use it once every month to do reimbursements. Just think about how that could improve that experience if you could bring that into Teams, your everyday tool, that you can talk to this system, get information out, and maybe even also push information back into that system. So, yeah, adding that skill to Microsoft 365 is one dimension. And then the other dimension being the knowledge part, that you can actually bring content into it, and that comes back to the prior slide about how everything works. You can bring content into the Microsoft Graph, and that could, of course, also be some really interesting things.
And is still that within a secure environment? Like, are we talking about the same security that we experience with a non-extended Microsoft 365 Copilot?
Exactly. Yeah. Then the whole infrastructure is there. You heard us also, maybe I've said it before on some of the other sessions, we repeated it last week, that the message here also really that Microsoft and many people within AI now sees this as the next UI. So we came from a mouse and keyboard. We at some point understood using touch on the phones. Now we need to bring it to the next level where we have a conversation. I think some even call it the conversational UI, and that's what we're building for here.
Yeah, I also heard like we come from clicking on icons to actually having this conversation with the tools that we use.
It's a funny story. So I saw several of the presenters at Ignite reverting to just speaking to the computer. That was okay. Yeah, we all tried it. I've been sitting there yelling at my car, try to get it to understand the address. But okay, I got it. I see it where we're heading for now.
Yeah.
I don't know, Rick, if you would like to add something to this story.
It's say what a very simple example I saw was adding into the Copilot, for example, the ability to use your own product data from a content management system or a product catalog, because you need that. Say whether you're in sales or customer service, you might need that information. And then, say, the complicated picture that Henrik showed, it becomes really important because, say, you need to make sure that in every stage of your conversation with the systems, because you're getting into a conversation, say, the prompt engineering gets really important. So does the Copilot still knows what you're talking about? Because it can lose at a certain moment context, and then we're getting into what is called hallucinations. So prompt engineering, prompt flow, and what you saw there in that picture was a grounding, say, making sure that the Copilot really knows what we're talking about and has the right information and gives back that right information to you, becomes a really important skill. So I think that was one of the takeaways that, say, there is a world of possibilities, but you also have to keep looking at what you're doing and testing. So the prompt flow, the prompt engineering, and the skills to actually do that is something that customers really have to look for.
We have this discussion with our customers currently, especially the ones also looking into having the Microsoft 365 Copilot, but they are not eligible to buy it right now due to all these different requirements that we have currently, the minimum of 300 licenses and so on. But we talked to them about the whole getting ready with the prompt engineering. So you can already start with kind of educating yourself and your organization to do prompt engineering, prompt chaining, know this terminology that comes with AI also. So then you're at least a step ahead. Once you have the licenses and once you're ready to implement these tools, then you know what you're supposed to do and how to interact with them. So that could be a good
I would certainly invest as a customer already in the knowledge of what is prompt engineering, what is groundedness, what is coherence, what is relevance, because these are different angles to the answers that the prompt is going to give back to you. And say you need to really pay attention to get the right answers. Otherwise, the answers will be generic or even hallucinations, and that's something we're here to help with, obviously.
I could add to that. Yeah, that was maybe one of my aha moments that. With this deep dive on how the copilots really work and what is complicated about it is to what you or they call the hallucinations, that we kind of got used to that with ChatGPT and with Bing Chat Enterprise, now Copilot. Let's remember that that it sometimes just produces stuff. And that's kind of okay, maybe because we got used to it. But that won't fly if you are in Excel and trying to have it do something for you, add a column, new rows, doing some pivoting, and then it comes up with a recipe for bolognese and whatnot. So it really needs to be strict on the point here. And I think that is also a lot to do with how this structure is set up. And also on that, was that why it's so complicated with the language stuff, because Microsoft's now, again, hallucination is one thing, but also that I think they call it toxic things. So it's things it shouldn't say, things it shouldn't state, that they try to remove that. And they can now optimize that for instance, English. But if we then apply Danish to that, so should that happen through some translations at some point? So going from Danish to English and then do the checks and then back to Danish, and they looked at me and say, that won't work well. And I was like, no, we all tried these translators, and especially this one way is okay, but going back and forth can be really, really complicated. So I guess that's why they haven't launched that part yet.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And maybe it's now we're because this is all about extending the system with Copilot Studio. Maybe it's also good to touch a little bit on that. Last time we mentioned that Copilot Studio is included when you buy the licenses for Microsoft 365 Copilot. I learned a little bit more about that because yes, it's included and you can use it to extend Microsoft 365 Copilot. However, when you are using the technical capabilities of the extension tool of the Copilot Studio to build really new Copilots, which is also a possibility, then you are getting into licensing-wise in a different situation, because then you're basically building different Copilots which are not covered under your licensing. So maybe it's good for customers to understand the difference. Like you can use Copilot Studio to extend Copilot 365 in your own environment with all of the data you have. So that's perfectly okay. If you use it, for example, to build a chatbot on your website, then you're in a different situation and different licensing applies.
Yes. Yeah. Good point.
That's
also.
A good point. Yeah. So were there any other major announcements? There was the Copilot Studio. We also had the Fabric general availability. I think that was also quite a large one. And then the whole renaming of the Bing Chat Enterprise also into becoming one of these Copilots. Yeah. Did you notice something else?
Yeah, if nothing else, then it will add to the confusion, right? That Bing Chat Enterprise is now Copilot. So
already spending time explaining that.
I saw an internal conversation just today that we've for so many had this year this notion of which tool when, right? With Yammer and Teams and whatnot. Now we get it with the Copilots because there are Copilots for almost everything you're doing going forward, and which one are you going to use when? Yes. And then one suggested ask the Copilot. So we did. But that aside, no other announcements. You could sum it up saying I think Microsoft has said themselves that they had more than 100 different announcements that falls into many different categories of new products, new features rolling out in private preview, public preview, opt-in features, and so on. So a lot of different things across the whole board, of course. I think we also mentioned last Thursday that they were investing really in this the hardware side on it. Mm-hmm. So maybe we don't think so much about this, but that driving the whole AI story and the compute power needed to do this. Also thinking about what's next, so to speak. So not talking about OpenAI and what happened during this weekend. What OpenAI is doing is of course also working on the next generation, and they're doing that in a very close cooperation with Microsoft. And maybe I would say almost a bit funny and speaking to the technical audience of Ignite. Ignite this year actually ended with a very technical session that was 1 hour, one-man show by the Azure CTO, Mark Russinovich. And I would just say to anyone that loves technology and likes Microsoft, spend an hour seeing that keynote if possible. But now that I say it, I'm kind of like, was it even recorded? I don't know. Yeah. Sorry. But he deep dive on what they are doing in terms of creating also the next generations of data centers and so on. And it was really interesting, at least for me as a nerd, a geek. I like it. Yeah. But I also think it drives a more important message about that Microsoft in so many ways are really pushing the limits to what is possible and maybe driving the industry to improving on so many different levels also here.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of us think that the cloud is simply there. And it's a big computer somewhere to cater for all this. But there are so many hardware changes going on to actually make this possible, because the compute power you need to make all of this happen is huge. And Microsoft is developing that by themselves, doing that with partners like NVIDIA. But they're also not blind for, say, the way they can improve the environment and keep it sustainable by consuming less energy where they can.
Right.
Yeah, that's really cool. So you stayed in the US, Rick, and you moved a little closer to Redmond. So you're also working to get a little more insight from Microsoft, or having good meetings, strengthening our relationship with Microsoft currently, or like what's happening?
Well, say obviously for us as a Microsoft partner, it is extremely important to have great relationships so we can service our customers. And one of our customers, was working on something, and being here, I could immediately step in with the responsible person here in Redmond to make that happen. So those are the good things that, say, being close to Microsoft and having those relationships. You also hear some things through the grapevine, which are, last week we already shared that, the licensing in CSP might not be that far away. Those are the kind of things you really hear on the floor. And strengthening that relationship is the most important part of what we're doing here. But also understanding how the stack is working is something which is something you easily understand when you're face to face with people. So it would be too long to go into it right here, right now. But if you see I made already the difference between, say, extending Copilot for Microsoft 365 and building your own Copilots. But then again, say that is just I would say in just between quotes in Copilot Studio. But then if you peel it off, like Henrik already said, peeling off the onion to the lower levels, like with Azure AI Studio, you can do so much more. Mm-hmm. So it's all layered. So basically, Copilot Studio is laying on top of that. And those are the conversations you're having here. Like if you scroll through all the announcements, you see how closely knit tight these developments are. Say every development is not a thing in itself. Every announcement is not a feature in itself, but it is linked to, hey, we now integrate this to that. We now can work Azure Studio with Microsoft Fabric. Microsoft Fabric now works with these external systems. So it's all connected to a larger platform. So from that respect, say my respect for the vision that Microsoft has put on the floor and is executing on is say growing. Say I already was a fan of the Microsoft technology. That's one of the reasons that. No. Yeah, it's a surprise. I know. But say that's the reason why we started with FellowMind, and that we all say created helping our customers with this technology because we believe in it. But actually, say from day one, 17 years ago to now, I couldn't have imagined that my belief in that vision has been growing even stronger because it is all connected. And then sometimes I see other vendors who are doing great things as well, but it's not as connected, it's not as consistent, and it's not, say, a total solution. So that's so much for the Microsoft advertising today. But
out of FellowMind advertisement.
Yeah.
No, actually, Pernille, to your question also, it's almost unfair. And now just check the website, and maybe that's what I would like to end on here, is also saying the conference is not over in the sense that it's so much alive still. I really like the way Microsoft has set it up with the Ignite Microsoft.com. You can go there, just log in, register with almost your any account, your corporate account, personal Microsoft account, and LinkedIn, Google account, I think. And then you can see all the recorded sessions. You can get to all the presentations and so on. Then, and there are it reached 617 sessions in there. And even though I had full time at Ignite, I think I counted 25 sessions that I covered through the time. In person, or because I saw some recorded sessions on the plane back home and in my hotel room. So go and use that, and then leaving only with one other announcement I thought was really interesting. I saw a session on is that the Copilot coming for Azure. It makes so much sense that you will have a Copilot in your Azure portal, and people working with Azure, I think when they see it, they will see this is a game changer. It's out in a preview now, as I understand. You need to sign up for it on a tenant level, but I'm looking forward to getting access to that and playing with it.
I think actually just some of our colleagues just had a broadcast in Danish though earlier today, actually touching upon this topic a little bit.
Okay.
Also, if you're into different kinds of the Microsoft stack, it might be the Azure, it might be the Viva, for example. Using this website is really good because you can filter on what exactly interests you in the Microsoft universe, so you don't have to plow through 615 presentations.
Yes,
you can go directly to what's of your interest.
Yeah,
that's we're about to close down, but we would like to leave you with something. So we've put together a little slide. So I'm trying to share my screen again. Staying on for a little moment.
I could maybe mention for instance, the presentation I did just before is BRK253H. So that's an example of, you could go to ignitemicrosoft.com and search for that specific, and you will then see it.
Yeah. So the time is now. Go build But what if you don't know what to build or where to start or how to even open the hood on some of these things? Then of course we're there to help you and guide you through some of the tools and some of the services that are available in the Microsoft Cloud and to you out there with no matter what license, no matter what technology you're into. It might be Dynamics, it might be Microsoft 365. We're covering it all. So what we have brought today is like the accelerator program, which is actually not focusing on the specific technology, but more focusing on your business and finding the use cases, the AI use cases that you definitely for sure have in your business. So that's what we have for the audience today. And I would just like to thank you, Rick, again, to get up very, very early for us all. Yeah. And also thank you, Henrik.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, and we're really looking forward to continuing the conversations out there. And reach out to us by all means, LinkedIn, mail directly. We would love to meet with you.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye, Rick.
Bye.